Oh, we're still working, so just, oh, we're good to go. Okay. Well, thank you guys for attending our November council. On behalf of the Early Childhood Care and Education Advisory Council, I call this meeting to order. So to begin our meeting, I'd like to call on Shaylin Jones to call the roll.
Here.
Here.
And we do have quorum.
Great, thanks everybody. We're going to take a moment we need a motion to approve the September 27th minutes. Can we get a motion?
A motion. We approve.
Thank you, Ms. Curtis. And second? Okay, any discussion? Opposition? Hearing none. The motion to approve the minutes is passed.
All right, our first item is an informational report on early childhood Haggerty implementation to promote early childhood language and literacy development. I'm going to now transition to Barry Carter, Assistant Superintendent of the LDOE Office of Early Childhood Care and Education, to introduce today's panelist. Barry.
All right, thank you, Dr. Polito. Also, welcome everybody today. Happy November, the season of thankfulness. And so very thankful to have a quorum, and also very thankful to be with you here today. I've actually had an awesome past couple months going and seeing some centers across the state, the wonderful works that they're doing. I just want to say thank you for all the hard work that you're doing. And so one of the things that we wanted to give you today was an informational report on how we're using Haggerty across our child care centers across the state. We've actually got a few people that's going to share with you from the field. One from Point Capique Parish, another from Lafayette Parish, and our third was going to be from Ascension Parish. So Amanda Fontenot is the director of early childhood in our Point Capique Parish school system. Is going to share with you with what they're doing, followed by Amy Thibodeau. I think Amy Thibodeau is going to go first. I'm sorry. So Amy's going to go first. She's the director of early childhood in the Lafayette Parish school system. And also Amanda Colong is the program facilitator for the early learning programs that's in the Ascension Parish school system. So at this time, I think, Amy, your turn. Where are you at?
Hi, good afternoon.
There you are.
Amy
Sorry.
Thibodeau, Director of Early Childhood, Lafayette Parish School System. Nice to see everyone. So our implementation of Haggerty is fairly new. We did receive the materials during the summer, but we'll share where we are and kind of what our next steps are. So Lafayette Parish is a little unique. I do want to share just some landscape information just to understand where we are in the school system. So as Director of Early Childhood, I oversee not only the school system's pre-K program, a teen parenting program, but also we oversee the On Track by 5 Child Care Resource and Referral Agency, or CCR&R, one of the very few that have parish-specific child care resource and referral agencies providing that support. as well as Lafayette Parish, Lafayette Ready Start. So our lead agency and support there. So unique to the supports of the state, but also excited to provide that very specific targeted support to the programs of Lafayette Parish. Here's a little information about our landscape so you can understand the scope of this work. We service about an average of 16,000 young children under the age of 5 in Lafayette Parish. They were residing. We don't unfortunately serve them all, but that is our goal. And of those students, about 9,200 are economically disadvantaged or at risk in previous terms. Within that, we are operating and supporting over 86 program partners. That includes both schools, roughly about 65 early learning centers, so a large scale of programs serving birth to 5. The last 3 metrics just let you know in and out of the classrooms how many we are servicing. So at last report, we are in 413 early learning classrooms across the parish. Overall average quality of those programs is a 5.4 currently. We're excited to see incremental growth each year since implementation. And then, of course, a key factor, as most of you know, Lafayette Parish is a place of workforce development. So we have a lot of commuting families coming into Lafayette for work. So we feel like that is important in discussing this conversation about literacy. So as a parish, but also as programs, we work very strategic with both our CCR&R and the Ready Start Network. And this year, our focus has really shifted to be strategic about early literacy, especially in line of the scope. We've had visits from the assistant superintendent and folks focused on literacy, and we're excited to see that growth. So these are just some of the pieces that we're really focused on. Is that a developmentally appropriate play, literacy in all classrooms, print-rich environment, and then also encouraging that family engagement at home. That's one of the big pillars of our Ready Start network. So specifically to Heggerty, we began using Heggerty in our preschool classrooms in 23-24 school year. It was implemented at the same time that our kindergarten through 2nd implemented the program. And our preschool classrooms, since we do have oversight of that, it was a required implementation through this explicit awareness. The teachers adopted it very quickly. They enjoyed the repetitiveness of the tool. So if you're not familiar with Heggerty, it is a daily assigned, instructional based tool that is very repetitive for students to practice the skills. We did distribute a sequence of the lessons to support their implementation about what lesson they should be on at each time. And the teachers were trained on the tool, and as well as our instructional coaches to provide implementation support as needed. We received such positive feedback that first year, even though it was a year that we started a little later, we were kind of slow to get moving. The teachers still provided great feedback, explaining how the students really love the tool and the opportunity to provide that instruction with very little planning involved, because the manual provides everything the teacher needs. So we did use it. It is about an 8 to 12 minute daily instruction. So it's a very short time frame for students. So it's not meant to provide long lessons and modeling. And then we also started seeing teachers incorporating a little bit more in student engagement, getting the students interactive with the tool, and having them model the skills that they were practicing with Heggerty. Also with that, we started with the increased support of data monitoring, looking at the SLTs focused on literacy and seeing that growth. And this tool we feel is very much informing our improvements in literacy in Lafayette Parish because of the opportunities the students are provided. A few of the things we noticed during that pre-K implementation was that there is a tiered need for supports. Very little support is needed for teachers to implement it. However, new teachers coming in needed to understand. So there was different resources, video libraries, things like that. And my coaches were also able to very quickly inform the teachers of how to implement the tool. It's not something that's very difficult. So, which is what led us to our most recent adoption this past summer. Thanks to the department, we were able to receive manuals for both the early literacy as well as the preschool edition. So that early opportunity for those classrooms with 3-year-olds, and then the preschool edition for classrooms who target 4-year-olds. And so now we're in this part of wanting to spread this tool to our network. So our implementation vision is this unified approach across the network, like everything else that we've done with early learning. You know, we've implemented class, gold, all of the different tools. And so this would be another tool and resource in the program's pocket to use. And so this is currently our phased approach. As a opportunity, we looked at our data and we started to notice that our phase 1, we really wanted to target the excellent and high proficient sites because those sites tend to have a better understanding and use of high quality curriculum. And so if they're already well versed in a curriculum, implementing a new tool would not cause any extra work or extra, investment for the program. They were already using those high quality opportunities. So that was going to be our first approach. We do have about 30 of those in Lafayette Parish within our early learning centers. So that was a great starting point, and those sites have now been offered the materials, explained how to use it, and provided technical assistance to get started. Our second phase, which is kind of currently where we are, is we're looking at the proficient early learning programs who have effective use of curriculum. So if there's curriculum present and they're effectively trained on using it, then we're going to begin that implementation phase with them. As you can imagine, 65 early learning programs, it takes some time to roll out a new initiative such as this, even though it is easy to use. And then moving forward, our next phases will be to continue this on any sites who obtain higher quality or sites who are ready for implementation within our network. The sites so far have been open to learning about the new tool, especially because it is so simple to implement in the classroom. As I mentioned, we are in that current implementation stage. So our strategies are first, obviously, to get the resources out to the programs, to work with the administrators, to determine if they're interested and how can we support their pacing of the lessons, providing that onboarding so our coaches were trained so they're able to re-deliver that information and make sure that they're prepared. And then also continuing that support with our technical assistance. Since it's not something that's difficult, technical assistance or short-term visiting typically tends to get the teacher on board and ready and prepared. In our implementation for the network, we have also started diving deeper into our data, looking at literacy and math, and looking at those ongoing assessments and goals, strictly focused on that, and assisting administrators with informing their practices because of that. So we've done more data discussions around this, especially in those math and literacy target areas. And then our vision for next steps. So where we're headed, our hope is, like we talked about earlier, is implementing this network-wide to all programs with that standardized expectations, giving them guidance, but also if you're going to implement the tool, here's the best practices related to it, and then pacing them out throughout the year. We also would hope for future PLCs or collaboration for best practice. As our teachers began to use it, they developed different strategies to keep the students engaged and to find optimal times for students to engage in this work. And then also continuing on that data collection and improvements, continuously making improvements. Since it is such a small implementation opportunity, it's not something that requires a lot of, I guess you'd say, revision. And then I just had to throw a plug in for our literacy-based opportunities with families. And so literacy has been the core of our family engagement work since we started this in 2019 as a Ready Start, but also most recently. So we, as a network, have impacted or interacted with over 5,000 families in Lafayette community. We're out in parks and at events and different opportunities representing literacy at home. We've made a very strong partnership with the public library and their events during the week for families who may not be enrolled in care. We're able to go in and provide some resources, some activities for those families with infants, toddlers, preschoolers at home to take home to their families. So although Haggerty is not an opportunity for that, we are using the same types of skills in that family engagement work and trying to connect to the entities that already serve the families. Any questions for us in Lafayette? As I said, we're early in implementation, but we're excited to see how this rolls out. I'll pass it to my friends.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Thibodeau. So now we're going to hear from our Ascension Parish School System, Ms. Coulon, to see what's going on over there. So Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Colon, and I'm the program facilitator for early learning programs in Ascension. Am I going the wrong way? Not nearly as fancy as Emmy, but and I don't have the landscape analysis like Emmy does, which is so fantastic. But if I were to use what Emmy has laid, she gave you a really great broad picture, and I'll just kind of zone in on the details. So very similar to what Emmy said, in Ascension, we started the Hegarty in our public school pre-Ks last year, and it went swimmingly. Our public school pre-K teachers loved it. The kids reacted really positively to it as well. So with that positive feedback from teachers and the kids' reactions to it, we decided to take it a step further to our early learning centers. With a little difference in how Lafayette did it, we decided to ask for raised hands who wanted to participate. We have 27 sites, different than their 86 sites. We asked who wanted to participate. So if you were interested in participating, but here's how I framed it. At one of our network meetings, I took the information that the early childhood team shared with us about the vision that the department was going, the direction they were going with early childhood literacy. I shared the timeline, the potential that was going to be shared with the BESI board regarding possible laws and what the direction was going to be. And I implored my directors to think in the long term. That's saying that if you're not planning for tomorrow, you're already behind today. So if you want to be competitive in your pre-K program, if you want to strengthen your pre-K program, if you want high quality interactions and you want a strong pre-K program, then you want to think about what it's going to look like for kindergarten readiness next year. And this is one way that you can do that. So if you want, and so we had really asked them to, last year in November, if you were interested in the Hegarty pilot in November. And then in the summer, there was going to be free trainings from the state. That was a really great opportunity, and new kits were offered as well in the summer. But when the back to school meeting came up, I implored them and I shared them the timeline and that kindergarten readiness was going to be redefined and it was going to hit you hard. Let's make sure that we're planning well ahead. And when that came to them, I got a few more hands raised for this pilot. So these are the folks that are going to participate. So 5 out of 27 I felt good about. So this is not me twisting hands, it's just me and them thinking about business and the rate of return and children and outcomes. So they could choose 3 and 4-year-olds. And then what we decided to do was to take a deep dive into what the actual pilot was going to look like, how I could provide support to them, and that's it. I'm constantly asking what I can do to support you. I am a one-man team, but I am huge and I am mighty. Like if you want me there, I am there. If you need something from me, I can put you on my books every other week. What you need, I can provide you. So they weren't doing it alone. The teachers didn't feel like they were going to be alone. Sometimes you get a curriculum, you get a training, and then that was a one and done. I couldn't let that be it. Even though this Hegarty was 5 to 7 minutes, 8 to 12 minutes, like Emmy just mentioned, you feel alone when you close the door to that room and you're in that bubble. And I've been a teacher for many years, and that's what teachers feel like. So I didn't want them to feel that. So we're in our pilot, we're asking the teachers to meet either we're going to do once a month meetings on Saturday mornings with coffee conversations so that they can feel like they're connected to someone else. So we talked about the 3-year-old curriculum. We dissected the curriculum. We talked about what is going into it, what they're talking about, what they're doing with the kids. And then we talked about the 4-year-old was phonemic awareness, how very different the 3-year-old was and how very different the 4-year-old was, and why these two are different and what they provide and how they feed into kindergarten readiness. And then we go back to strengthening your pre-K program. Once you finish this pilot, I'm going out right now and getting the pre-test data. they'll be able to post data on their website, obviously aggregate the data, and say, here's what we saw in our phonemic awareness data, and this is the growth, and if you bring your child here to my center, we're preparing children for kindergarten readiness here. And if you're saying that you participate in Hegarty, then they would have those bragging rights. They will have that, and it can help with their enrollment. So, and this is the data we're collecting. I know you hear a lot about Dibbles and that Dibbles is coming, or, you know, Dibbles in the K-5 world. That's a lot of my history in education. So I took some of the progress monitoring and manipulated a little bit too, but I used the standardization of implementing Dibbles to do the pre-testing for some of these kiddos. First, sound isolation. This is just helping children be able to recognize that there is a phoneme in a word, and that's what the first pre-test is. And then for kindergartners, that is only implemented in the beginning of the year. And then we're also using the phoneme segmentation fluency, and that's implemented for kindergartners beginning, middle, and end. But I will only implement these at the beginning and the end of the pilot. When they finish this and they go into kindergarten, they'll have a little recognition of what that test looks like and feels like, right? But whenever they go there, they'll recognize that what a sound is, the beginning of a sound, and then all the sounds they might hear in a word. And that's what they're practicing with Hegarty. They're practicing hearing sounds and listening to the sounds. There's no manipulatives for them. It's just listening skills. And that's what the joy and the greatness of Hegarty is. So that's what they do. And the teachers give them little headbands with ears. And they say, this is your little listening game. We're going to play a listening game. And they love that. So, okay, I'm going to pass it to my friend, Amanda.
Another Amanda. Hi, I am Amanda Fontenot. I am the Early Childhood Supervisor for Poincapie Parish. I'm also the Head Start Director. A little different than these two ladies, I don't deal with the early learning centers. The CCR&R and the lead agency are separate from us. We work with them collaboratively, of course, but the information I have and the data I'm going to provide is strictly from the school system. We also, as Emmy said, had some visits from the State Department. They came and saw some of our pre-K centers and what the good things we were doing there. And to go off of what these ladies said, we're a little further into the Hegarty world. We are in year 4. Year 1 was a pilot year. We showed the teachers, we gave them some of the manuals if they wanted to, and it was immediate yes. So that pilot year, those few teachers, the other teachers saw that and came to us and said, can we do it too? So of course we jumped on that. So with 3 years of implementation of Hegarty for both 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds in the public school system, our Dibbles data has skyrocketed. So we ended last school year with 63% of our pre-K 4-year-olds being kindergarten ready. So we actually gave them the kindergarten beginning of the year Dibbles test at the end of pre-K, and 63% of them were ready for kindergarten at that time. And considering summer slide and children moving and those kind of things, we started this year with those pre-Ks going into kindergarten at 56% of those students still scoring, which is more than 30% increase from previous years. So the data is based on Dibbles, but it is all from Hegarty. That implementation, the ease of it, the way that the teachers are able to use the videos, the video library, as well as have it a daily lesson, very short. We also didn't do the raise hands or the if you want to. Now it is actually required, and it is in their schedule, and it is a checklist. You have to do it.
but we don't have any pushback because of the way they see the growth in the children. We also do progress monitoring throughout the year, and I've had teachers ask me, can I monitor as much as I want? Can we do it weekly? I like to see it. I want to send it home to the parents. The parents enjoy seeing the numbers go up. So from the data side, using the Dibbles, Hegarty has greatly increased those scores. So our kids will be kindergarten ready.
So any questions for these three ladies about their implementation, about what they've seen, about how you might implement it? Dr. Lucas?
Whenever I went to actually one center, Mudbugs Academy, there were a couple of kiddos, one with apraxia and one with autism. And because neither one of the kiddos had an IEP or an IFSP, they were both 4-year-olds, so they had a doctor diagnosis. So what we did is we administered it as if without any accommodations, right? And so it gave us true information. If and when the child does have accommodations, then we would make those accommodations. So when I went, I had a little warm and fuzzy. I call them warm and fuzzies, but it was just a little ball with eyeballs, and it was in a box. And I was like, okay, so my friends are here on a field trip, and can you hold one and make him feel better because he's never been out of class, and it kind of made him feel. So each time I screened a child, I spent 2 to 3 minutes building a relationship with them, and so by doing that, I got as good as I was going to get, if that makes sense. So I built that relationship. And the one with the apraxia, I gave him praise every time he gave something, and he was so excited. So he was like just stretched out, laid out all over me. So it was just adorable. Just as long as I made them feel comfortable, and if they didn't give anything, that was fine. And if he shows growth at the end, then that's great. If he doesn't, then that's actual data to help in the development of a future IEP or IFSP, well, IEP in the case. But that was a great question. Thank you.
So I will share a little, our preschool teachers in our self-contained classes did adjust if the students were not able, although it is a very short lesson, if they weren't able to do the whole scope of the lesson, they did break it up into 2 different segments or different parts of the day, or took smaller groups. Although it can be used in a whole group, our teachers in self-contained adjusted based on the needs of the students. And as well in our inclusion classes, because of their able peers, they were able to model the skills for their peers. So a lot of times they were participating in the best manner possible with their peers next to them. So most of the teachers were able to adopt or adapt based on the needs of their students. So if anything, they shortened the lessons or the practice to either break it up during the day or do a shorter version of it for the students. And that is also why we like the 2 different tools. So there is an earlier phonics, earlier or 3-year-old program that if we felt that the makeup of a class needed to start with those skills, that we could actually adopt that first before using the 4-year-old tool, even though the students were aged 4 or 5 in those self-contained classes. So we've been able to be flexible with the implementation in those ways. The videos. So the QR, is that what you're talking about? Yeah, there's a video library or companion library that offers the resources as well for accommodations. The QR code can show the teacher how to use it in action and also how to modify. So there's resources built into the tool.
I really appreciate you asking that question because, of course, you're hearing about early implementation in several areas of the state, but we really want to, as a department, pull together the best practices and share those in resources that go to everyone in the state. And so thinking through what needs to be included in those resources and that guidance is very, very helpful to us. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a great question. Ooh, that's loud. Because when we did this rollout with all the networks, I'm so glad Emmy mentioned the use of the two kits. So the option for the 3-year-old kit was there and the option for the 4-year-old kit. And what we found was for those accommodations that they were buying both because we want to meet the children where they are. So we can start with the 3-year-old kit and move into the 4-year-old kit if needed.
Other questions? So I just wanted to note, I believe at the last meeting, we also did some early language and literacy information. No surprise, you're going to keep hearing about this as this is such an important focus for our state. And we want to just keep sharing with you the efforts we're making to expand opportunities and resources and development on this very important matter so that children enter school ready to succeed.
And I'll just layer, I guess, as a class subject matter expert that I am, this layers language modeling, early language support, all the things that are just critical for our children. It gives our teachers just additional tools because we know that at the base of all this is interaction. So we can have the frogs or the Haggerty, but we've got to ground all of our work in those interactions, and having this robust material is wonderful and helpful. So Maria, I'll pass it on to you.
We're now going to move on to our final item, which is the third quarter report that covers July to September. And Karen, I think you're going to.
Take you through it. Yes, thank you, Maria. Okay, so we will talk about our types of programs, CCAP, voucher, and B2 seats, the Early Childhood Education Fund, our networks, and our activities to support early childhood professionals. So first off, you can see here the latest statistics. This quarterly report is to cover July, August, and September of 2025. And you can see here our latest numbers by site type and our latest numbers of sites with their according star ratings. So I will tell you that in April, type 1 had, 189 sites. So that's a slight decrease in type 1 sites, but it's actually a slight increase in type 2 sites and a slight decrease in type 3 sites and family childcare. So at the end of Q2, we had 1,208 type 3 sites, and we had 204 CCAP certified family childcare sites. So some decrease, but fairly minor. I will just proceed, and you can interrupt with questions at any point if you have them. Here you can see CCAP voucher statistics for Q3. You can see that we ended September with 17,268 children served in CCAP voucher seats. And you can see that, unfortunately, the CCAP waitlist has continued to grow with 5,013 families on the waitlist and 7,081 children on the waitlist awaiting services. In terms of our contracted seat statistics, as of September, 38 networks had 2,900 children enrolled. You can see it's a smaller number of infant children and a larger number of toddlers. And we will talk after the quarterly report about a little bit more about B2 contracted seats, a few more updates that did not technically fall within Q3 because this is the Q3 report. But in Q3 specifically, the department sent more than 2,000 reapplication emails to families in the parishes you see on the screen. And as of September 2025, there's an increase in that number subsequent to Q3. But as of September, there were 2,395 B2 renewal applications submitted to the department. This year in the Early Childhood Education Fund, there are 14 Ready Start networks or community network lead agencies who raise local funds that qualify for the state match. This includes 3 new parishes, Avoyles, Red River, and St. Tammany. And you can see here the ECE fund enrollment as of September 2025. So a significantly higher number of infants than we see in the contracted seats, as well as 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, and 3-year-olds.
Karen, real quick, if you don't mind, related to the CCAP B to 3 contracted seats, do you mind just talking through the process that was changed? Because it was at the local level, and then if y'all had any hiccups or that type of thing.
Let me ask you, are you okay with me doing it when I come back to CCAP?
Sure.
B to 3 seats? Okay, please help me remember. And then here you see the list of parishes participating in the ECE fund this year and the amount that they were funded as match. So just remember that means that the total amount being invested in their community is twice that funded amount, because that's their state funded amount, but they also raised that amount locally. In terms of accountability system updates, the department worked with the community network lead agencies and sites to ensure in Q3 that all sites and classrooms had scheduled their fall 2025 observations in the early childhood class portal, and that all community network lead agencies submitted their 2025-2026 coordinated observation plan. That's a document that the networks are required to do in partnership with the program sites every year to make sure that the observation plan is clear to all participating parties. In terms of Ready Start Network updates, in Q3, we predominantly worked on having department staff meet collaboratively with the Ready Start networks and the corresponding child care resource and referral agency to really think about how they could collaborate further together and share each of their goals with each other. And so those were very, very productive meetings, and we're really excited to deepen those collaborative relationships and to support that. We do want to congratulate our 2026 Early Childhood Teacher and Leader of the Year overall honorees. They were recognized in July at the annual LDOE Gala. So we have Brooklyn Johnson Bailey, who was our Teacher of the Year, and Devonda Whittington Warren, who was our Leader of the Year. Our Teacher of the Year was from Allen Parish, and our Leader of the Year from Tangipahoa Parish. Thanks, and supported by Carmen Brabham. We also really want to continue our work to elevate early childhood, to let more people understand the importance of early childhood, to expand our promotional campaign of the importance of early childhood. And so one of those steps, and to really elevate these specific recognized leaders, was to go visit Miss Warren's early childhood site in August. And so you see there that we visited her site, Explore and Learn Early Learning Center. And now Brittany is going to hopefully perform some technology for us. And we're going to show you a video that we captured while on that site visit. And we're really excited about sharing this publicly to show people what early childhood education and care really looks like in these quality sites, that it is not babysitting. All right, sorry to set that up, but we will try to come back to it. And again, as part of that elevation and just knowing that, you know, the department does what we can to try to express our gratitude for everything that providers do, to try to promote what you do, recognize what you do. But we recognize that there's a difference hearing guidance from us versus hearing it from your peers. And so we were very excited this year to have our Early Childhood Leader of the Year come and give an address at our Fall Early Childhood Conference. And so she shared inspiring messages related to our conference theme, which was Early Foundations and Endless Possibilities. and mention that when we provide new experiences each and every day, we are supplying the building blocks for a strong foundation for lifelong learning. She also inspired educators by stating, to elevate early childhood education, we must educate. We must be intentional with our approach. We want the children to be able to navigate the world with confidence and curiosity. So hopefully we will get that video set up, because I think you will see very clearly in that video how she and her staff accomplish that every day. It's a very joyful video. In other terms of supporting early childhood professionals, here is some data on our child care resource and referral and mental health consultation service work. In Q3, CCR&Rs assisted 374 early learning sites and provided more than 3,600 hours of coaching using a data-driven approach to determine coaching frequency and support and make sure that that support is being given to the sites most in need of improvement. The Tykes Mental Health Consultation Program provided support to 149 early learning sites within more than 1,400 early learning classrooms, and worked with coaches, providers, and teachers to support children's behavioral health. So they modeled behavior management, they talked about setting age-appropriate expectations, and creating supportive environments. They also conducted developmental screenings. We've shared that we have a free online professional development platform called EC Learn. And so we continue to add new coursework to that platform. We continue to offer the free health and safety trainings, but we've also begun to offer additional professional development trainings. So those include safe environments, infant care, positive relationships and collaborative relationships with families, developmental screening and referrals, and the early learning and development standards. And we will be adding more early language and literacy development coursework very soon as well. And so we have seen huge new enrollments every single month since we launched this basically a year ago now. And so you see in July through September, with more than 8,000 new enrollments in August, the interest in this professional development. So we're very excited about that. And we thought, you know, because slides are pretty and graphics are pretty, we would just show you some of the analytics from that. So you can see that 16,635 courses were completed during that quarter. In terms of supporting the professionals who support young children with disabilities, during Q3, the department focused on supporting better outcomes for young children with disabilities by providing numerous professional development opportunities. So in July, we had a session on supporting young children with disabilities in early childhood settings that presented strategies and best practices to support young children in early childhood programs by helping teachers and sites understand about creating appropriate environments that support the needs of all young children, including those with disabilities, about promoting and providing appropriate materials, and about facilitating high-quality educator-child interactions, again, with all children. Key takeaways included reflection on current practices, policies, and procedures for screening and referral. And participants noted barriers to the referral process and discussed how screening outcomes help them to target developmental delays and address them. In August, professional development focused on developmental disabilities in young children by providing a basic understanding of child development to help educators and families monitor the children in their care more closely to better determine next steps concerning formal screening and referral. So key takeaways included considering ways that programs can provide curriculum supports within classrooms to positively impact the experience of children with disabilities, and how to partner with families. I think you're hearing a language and literacy development theme. I hope you're also hearing a family engagement and partnership theme in these quarterly reports and our panels. So how to partner with families to support those individual needs of children in ways that drive decision-making in both the home and the school environments, so that those strategies can be implemented consistently for the children across all the settings that the children are in. And then in September, our professional development focused on developmental milestones and the Learn the Signs, Act Early guidance and program. So it provided leaders and educators with a better understanding of child development and the difference between developmental monitoring and screening. It also provided resources that are available to support families and children. And Julie Emery, who is with LDH as the Louisiana ambassador for the federal Learn the Signs Act Early program, spoke in depth about those resources available. And I think that's it. One more session that we held in Q3, the department offered 2 virtual gold OSEP administrator professional development opportunities. And so this helped OSEP administrators who are using gold to have a better understanding of the gold platform, improve their data quality, and better support young children with disabilities and the educators who teach those children with IEPs. So OSEP administrators were shown how to ensure that all children with IEPs are entered correctly into the system and how to exit children from OSEP. That's really, really important for our federal Part B reporting for us to try to ensure that the data is as accurate and strong as possible. OSEP administrators were shown how to analyze OSEP reports and look for gaps in the data. And they were shown how to ensure that the data reported is accurate and within compliance. And so it was required for OSEP administrators to attend one of those sessions. I mentioned the conference when we spoke about Ms. Warren speaking at that, but here's a little bit more detail. In Q3, this fall we've hosted 2 conferences. One of them occurred during Q3. That was the Baton Rouge Conference. And that conference brought together approximately 800 early childhood educators and leaders from across the state, but primarily from Southern Louisiana, to learn, connect, and celebrate the work of building strong early learning foundations. Hint, in Q4, you'll hear about the Shreveport Conference. This year's theme, as I noted, was Early Foundations, Endless Possibilities. And the conference fostered a collaborative learning environment for educators and leaders, with sessions focusing on strengthening early learning from birth through age 5, exploring a broad range of early topics across 50 breakout sessions that were offered that day, and on advancing leadership, quality improvement, and family partnerships. And so you can see in your slides just some of the pictures from that day. And I really hope you can come in a future year if you have not already. It's a very, very joyful experience. The providers just really appreciate having that coursework available, and I think coming together and feeling like, seeing hundreds of their peers and feeling part of something so huge and so powerful and so important. So not just seeing their own small site. And so now we are going to try to show you a video about the conference. So the conference is one of those days when your face hurts at the end of the day because you smiled so much. So it's a good day. Any luck with the other video? Perfect. Thank you, Brittany. I think that was worth the wait. So the provider, our leader of the year, I don't think you've gotten to see that yet, Carmen. Yes, yes. So we can share that. That's something you can share on the Tangipahoa site. But the leader of the year is so excited about that. And she said, can I have the copy? You know, because she wants to use that to advertise her site and share what she does there. So we're just really excited. I know I'm being redundant, but to elevate early childhood. And, you know, if you're paying attention in that video, I think you see that that is not babysitting. You know, yes, children are playing because play is how you learn at that age, but you see all these fingers and pointing, and you see the conversations because they're being guided and they're being asked questions throughout that entire experience. So we definitely wanted to highlight Ms. Warren because she is the leader of the year, but it's just such a great opportunity to let teachers share why they're doing what they're doing too. And we just hope that makes them feel a little better about the very hard work they do for, frankly, very, very little pay. So happy to have shared those with you today. All right, so now a few other updates about CCAT B2 seats. And to go back to Libby's question, to give you a little bit of context or reminder, because I know we have had some new members join as well, and it's been some time since we talked about this. The B2 seats, the contracted seats program, began as a pilot several years ago now, both through the preschool development grant, and then it's something we expanded with the federal stimulus funding. And it's something that was just hugely successful and popular in communities as a way to increase and target the increase of infant and toddler and also 3-year-old care. If you think back to our annual reports that we show in May, you know, you've got 80 to 90% of 4-year-olds being served, but then you dip down to about 30% for 3-year-olds, and you get down to 10% or less for infants and toddlers. And so this was an initiative specifically designed to increase the access for those ages as well. It was tremendously popular and effective. And so, but for a few reasons, we decided to transition the program from local community network administration to department administration. And some of those reasons include so that we could use CCDF funding for that. We needed to make sure that we followed the same CCDF rules and that it went through the same CCDF accountability, because we want to make sure that we would never be entirely dependent on state general funds for that. It's a program that from year to year, we were having to wait until the last minute to see what funds were awarded, and that was very difficult. And we were also just hearing some things. It takes a good bit of administration, and networks look very different, as you saw from our 3 panelists today. We've got large networks that have larger staffs, and then we've got, a small network where one person is all things early childhood. And then frankly, we have even smaller networks where one person is all things early childhood through grade 12. So we really wanted to take some of that burden off the networks and ensure consistency in payment processes and other strategies and practice. So does that provide some helpful context, Libby?
I wouldn't have asked. We didn't get the stuff prior, so.
Yes,
thank
no
you so
problem. I
much.
think it's very helpful, actually. We have not recapped that in some time.
Also, after looking back and forth, because it says here that you, in total, more than 3,000 emails for reapplication were.
Quarter 3 versus the total
Oh,
period.
okay.
Yes.
How many children were able to stay in a B3 seat versus new ones got to go into seats?
So what we have done, we would like to consider adding new children into seats eventually, but our focus has been continuity of care. And so what we have done is, as we have transitioned the program over the summer and fall, we have kept every child in the program. We've paid every provider for the children who were in the program as of June 30th. And we are not stopping those payments until a re-eligibility determination has been made on the case. And so we kept all remaining children. You'll see here that some of, let's see if it's on this slide. Let me just go through these 2 slides really quickly, and then we can address some other questions. So all families that were participating as of June 30th have now been notified. To Libby's point, 2,000 happened to be notified in quarter 3. Some were notified before that. Some got their applications in after that. And we are working to complete the processing of all applications. We are getting closer. More than 3,000 emails for application were sent total. We know that this was a shift for families from working with the networks directly and hearing from the networks directly. So we made sure that we backed up our efforts of sending out that email notification by using our call center to do call outs to the families. So we made 3 calls to every family, and we staggered those. Well, exactly, thank you. We don't want families to miss out on important services. And so we staggered those calls because we also know you can intend to do something, but you're dealing with your life, right? The children need something, you're working extra shifts. So that's why we staggered the calls to help give them a reminder and hope that maybe on week 2 or week 3, even if they hadn't had time on week 1, that would be a good timely reminder. Applications closed on October 31st. And I will say now providers should begin seeing children added to their KinderConnect rosters. A reminder that KinderConnect is our attendance tracking system that we use. And we're going to begin notifying families and providers that now those CCAP B to 3 seats children will also need to begin signing in and out of KinderConnect daily, just as the CCAP voucher seat children and recipients do. Because no matter what the seat is, we want to ensure that it's being utilized. And if it's not being utilized, we want to move that seat to another child who needs it. The department is beginning to contact families and providers with instructions on doing that signing in and out. But here's where I wanted to circle back to why we also felt it was important to take the program in-house. So some of the benefits are, like, as I mentioned, it will provide more consistency across the whole state for participating families and providers. One, as I mentioned, is to ensure that CCDF federal funding can be used for the program. But it also helps ensure, because we must operate under CCDF rules, that all families now receive a full 12 months of eligibility at each determination period. So previously, when it was something that was funded through allocations to the networks, it had to kind of be on a rolling basis. And when we were dependent on the state funding, it had to wait until we knew in June what we would have for the next year. So we feel like this is a really important benefit, that families are now guaranteed a full 12 months, no matter what. And if you're not as familiar with CCDF, now these families are entitled to benefits until they are no longer eligible, regardless of what total funding amount we have. The other thing is that CCDF requires that services are available for all children in need of care in the household. And so this transition is allowing now for sibling care of those B-3 seats contracted children as well. And we think that's a benefit to the families and the providers.
Karen, so the B-3 seats are no longer going to be part of the CFR. Is that right?
They're not part of the coordinated funding request for this year. We are working, there's a lot in transition. We do know that the community networks play a critical role in helping us know the access needs in the community. So first of all, we want to make sure all the children currently being served continue to be served. But then we are looking at what contracts with providers will look like so that these seats actually do operate as contracts as intended. So we're going to be setting up contracts to say you are guaranteed this many seats of this age, and this age for this 12-month period. And we are also working to come up with the list of what the responsibilities for networks will be, providers, and department will be. So there will be an opportunity in future to ask for more seats, but not in this particular coordinated funding request.
Center already has the 3 seats now, and you have a family come on and they have a sibling, or you have families, you already know who the siblings are and how many seats, additional seats you need to provide using regular CCAP seats. Is that how that works?
You're talking about the adding of the siblings for the existing children? Yes. So you've got the children who were in B-3 seats who are still B-3 age in a contracted seat, and then you have siblings or children who are turning from 3 to 4 in a voucher seat. So a family can be served by both sides of the CCAP program. It's complicated. Yes, Ari. Yes, that's the other benefit, because the need for care does not end. Exactly.
I think you answered it, but I'm not sure you answered it. But so the question that was asked to me was, so when the child turns 3, if they're have the 12 months, when a child turns 3, they move into the CCAP seat, and then they can refill their birth to 3 seat?
They're both CCAP seats. One is a voucher seat and one is a contracted seat. And so whatever let me see if I can phrase this better. I was going to say whatever the child is, whatever age the child is on September 30th is the type of seat that child's going to have. So if they are 3 as of September 30th, they will stay in a contracted seat all year and then move to a voucher seat subsequently.
But then that B-3 seat, the contracted seat, is now vacant. Is that still at the center, or is that?
Once we see, we are, expanding the program by serving siblings. And so we need to see where that places us with our funding model at the end of this reapplication period. And then we're going to send out the contracts to the sites to say, okay, here's how many seats you are able to replace and you are guaranteed for X 12-month period.
So essentially, I think what I'm hearing is because of that, there is a possibility that providers could lose, the number of seats could drop. Depending on the funding after the period when those contracts come, a provider that had, let's say, 5 infants or 3 infant seats could potentially drop down to 2 infant seats or 3-year-old seats, essentially, because we don't know if the funding's there, because we are expanding
I would say two things. One, if families are not still found to be eligible, it could be that the number of contracted seats you had last year versus the coming year could decrease. I don't anticipate that once we get through this, we don't anticipate reducing the contracted seats further for this 12-month period. But I do think to be fiscally responsible, we need to just wait and be sure of what the numbers are. But the idea would be once we give you the contract, that is what we have determined we can fund. So once we get through the application process and reassess the funding levels, then we will be working to get out contracts and say, this you are guaranteed for this period.
Okay, and when will that happen? And I can see it, how will providers be prioritized in the event that that does happen?
I think those are updates we can share in January and we can certainly receive feedback on.
Okay.
Yeah. We are looking at applications being fully completed. You know that there's a period in which, let me step back. You know that a lot of families do not submit all documentation with the initial submission of their application, and I'm seeing some smiles. So there's a period that we give for families, some back and forth where we say, oh, forgot to send us this, please send this in also. And so we have to wait and do several weeks of back and forth with every families after the first touch before we can close out all cases and know the kind of final determination on all the applications. So that is expected to finish, not the majority of the cases. The majority of the cases are getting done, but those final staggered final cases in December. So I think in January, we'll have more updates for you.
So we are talking, and not to beat a dead horse, but I just want to make sure I understand. So we're talking about two separate scenarios where the number of contracted seats could potentially decrease. We're hoping that doesn't happen. But so if a child is ineligible, or if a family is ineligible, sorry, that's one way.
Mhm.
But in the event that the contracted seat goes to a voucher seat, and we don't know if we'll be able to continue to fund that.
Previous contracted seat.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think it's best to, acknowledge that the amount of funding hasn't really changed. So
Absolutely.
by replacing, by adding more voucher seats, we're not going to be able to replace every single contracted seat if a child was no longer determined as eligible. But we want to keep every child you're currently serving, if they're still eligible, in that seat. Not currently. We do know that will be important to do in future, but we have to continue to get through the transition, unfortunately. Oh. They're getting added at the same time. So we communicated to families from May through September, hey, this is the benefit of this transition, that you can now apply for any child in need of care. So we said it numerous times to the families and said, include them in your application. Yes, you need to add an infant or you need to add a 5-year-old. Yes, they should all have been submitted with the family's application. Catch Ariel.
So I know some centers do it and right now there's no okay allowed.
I think right now we are looking at that indefinitely. And the reason why is because longer term, and I recognize that's not how a contract is working right now. It's not a contract right now. It's just a seat. But longer term, when you get that contract, you're guaranteed getting to replace that seat. And so that longer term, there is a benefit to having a contracted seat. And so that's why we feel like that benefit changes that copay situation. Now, I do understand that, then for the next round, sites may say, well, I want to serve more of this age and less of this age, figuring out the math and the financials. But that is our thinking on those copays. We are working to get registration fee payments out. Again, I don't know a date for that yet, but we should know. They will probably have been made by the January meeting. And again, another benefit is we can now pay school readiness tax credit quarterly bonuses on these seats. So those are also going to be going out for the first quarter. Providers have rightly noticed some rate differential between what they were receiving last year and this year. The reason for that is rates are now completely aligned to the CCAP voucher rate. And the reason that the contracted seats rates were a little bit elevated previously was because we were building in kind of an equivalent of that quarterly bonus because it was not something we could give out through the system. So now, because we can give the quarterly bonus out the exact same way, you get the same rate for the seat and the same quarterly bonus determination for the seat. Any other questions?
So I do have one, and I may, yeah, it may have been
I'm
spoken
so
about.
sorry. Make sure you are using your microphones and that they're on. And I'm sorry that we've
Yes.
missed so many questions that way. Thank you,
No,
Jonathan.
sorry. So the reasoning behind the no copays, where did that come from?
That there's an advantage to having a contracted seat and that other providers don't have that advantage. So, providers may choose not to have contracted seats in the future if they don't feel like that's enough of an advantage to them. But they are, unlike a voucher seat, as you well know, where that child can leave and you just lose that revenue, that contracted seat, you have the benefit, once that contract's in place, of knowing you have that guaranteed revenue for 12 months. So it's a stability that you're being given that you don't have with a voucher seat. And so the parent's copay on top of any LDOE mandated copay can kind of help you with a voucher seat as a provider. Mm-hmm. 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 Let's talk about that and let us talk to legal because I don't know that you would have to do that. So let's definitely set up a meeting. Right. No, thank you for raising that. I don't want to speak definitively without consulting with legal, but I feel like we've broached something like that with them before.
I'm gonna say,
Thank
I
you for
think
that.
it's something that's come up before.
Yes, yes, because we were looking at it also with, well, in multiple ways, but one of them was also, if you were raising local dollars and you did not have your own waiting list, well, we have one, so we talked about not making those families have to reapply from our waiting list to yours. So I think there would be an equivalency in how legal would probably assess that, but when it comes to legal matters, we're going to check everything. So yes, let's set up a meeting. Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you, Karen. Are there any more questions or comments? Or any public comment?
Okay, with that being said, we just want to let everyone know on the next slide in your packet, our next meeting will be held on January 29th of 2026. And that concludes our agenda today. So the meeting is adjourned. Thank you guys so much. Happy Thanksgiving.
But I'm telling you, wherever he
Betty. Boom.
I don't, yeah, I need to see you come in.
Right, y'all. You headed back?